3, 2.
Hey everybody, it's John at Ubaldi Reports, the podcast that provides fact, not fiction, on issues impacting America, whether globally or domestically. And today's podcast, it's
Domestically. It's hurting us domestically.
This is really killing us domestically. The number one issue for most Americans is immigration. It used to be inflation, the economy, but the number one issue on voters' minds is immigration. And we saw what happened, I think it was over the weekend, where a 22-year-old college nursing student was killed by an illegal immigrant.
What about the shooter at the Kansas City Chiefs parade? He was a illegal.
Illegal. Then there was another incident where an illegal immigrant sexually molested a 2-year-old. And the whole impetus for President Biden, this puts him in a quandary, and the Democratic parties, because they own this. Because in 2019, during the first presidential debate, every one of them raised their hands.
Come one, come all.
When asked, would your health care plan include illegals? And every hand went up. So it's a draw. And then remember, during the whole Trump administration, what everybody thinks of Donald Trump, he was fighting against sanctuary cities. And what they've done with sanctuary cities, they put a policy out that if they arrest an illegal immigrant, they will not turn them over to ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Wasn't the cities just maybe kind of like, if Trump's like, I want ICE and all illegal immigrants out, and they're like, oh yeah, well, not in our city. Is that
but they also have a fundamental belief, especially among many of the progressives. They believe in open borders. They believe people are coming here because of climate change or whatever variety of reasons. But ICE had this individual in New York City, but they were released, and ICE agents tried to get a retainer, but they were barred from doing that. Now, because I work at a law enforcement supply company that deals with outfitting all the federal, state, and local law enforcement with their vehicles and lighting, I deal with a lot of ICE agents, and they tell me the same story, that they're barred. Municipalities release these individuals. They're barred from going, getting a retainer to hold them. So they have to, once they're released, then they go find them. But that's putting them at risk, and it's putting the community at risk. So remember, this individual who killed this girl, they had him, but they released him. And this is happening all over the country. There was a father whose son was killed by a drunk driver who was an illegal immigrant. Now, people can say Americans are, and I got a friend who said this, Americans are committing crime, but at the same time, does that mean we need to import criminals from around the world?
So let's go into something, LaCroix. Really don't see what the huge problem with illegal immigrants is. What's the problem?
Well, the problem is we're spending resources that could go to Americans. We spent so far in the 3 years, this is from the Congress, is about $500 billion on illegal immigrants. So look at Chicago. They have to house illegal immigrants. They have to pay for their housing, their health care. Where does that money come from? Denver, a hospital in Denver spent well over $130 million taking care of the health care for illegal immigrants. That means less money for Americans. I'm not saying we shouldn't have legal immigration.
But they should go through the proper channels.
But they should go through the proper channel. Now, the government, the State Department, and Homeland Security and all the federal agencies that deal with immigration need to fix the broken and bizarre system of how you get to America. But that said, that doesn't mean we should be taking everybody. We didn't do that during the height of immigrants coming in Ellis Island. If you were medically unsuited, or the government didn't think you were suited to be an immigrant here, you were sent back. What makes it different now?
I did see something. It comes from us, but it's the plan.
Well, no, it is the plan. I think it's by design. They believe in open borders. They believe there should be no borders. But
that was from Tracy, by the way.
Okay, but for Tracy, and I'm not sure where she was going, but I think if I could not speak for her, but I would say that it is by design, because if they come here and the immigration bill that The Senate passed, but was rejected by the House, did nothing to stop it. And I think eventually what it would become is like what happened in 1986. The last time they did a comprehensive immigration, they gave amnesty. That was supposed to stop it. So what are we supposed to do? Give amnesty for 8 million people who broke the law? And they were interviewing immigrants in the U.S. southern border, and they say they prefer Joe Biden over Donald Trump because Donald Trump will shut the border down. And this president hasn't done anything. Now, if you go by the immigration reform package that was stalled in the Congress, did nothing to stop the flow at the source. Now, remember, Joe Biden campaigned. He even appointed his vice president, Kamala Harris, to be the border czar. And they said, we're going to fix it at the source. She went to Guatemala, Honduras one time. She hasn't spoken to those leaders since. Joe Biden hasn't even visited Latin America since he's become president.
So I guess LaCoya, she kind of chimes in again. She says, is immigration the biggest problem? Like, question mark. Like, is there any other problem that America's facing that's bigger than immigration? Or
well, right now
it's just like a mixture of immigration, economy, and...
Well, it's a mixture of a lot of things, but immigration is a big issue because there a lot of the states like Illinois, New York, Pennsylvania, they just can't absorb this cost because remember, the states have to balance their budget where the federal government doesn't. Right now, New York State is facing about 10 to $12 billion shortfall. New York City is facing well over $1 billion. Chicago is $8 to $9 billion. Illinois is facing billions of dollars short. California, the largest state in the union, is facing about a $74 billion shortfall.
So she is bringing up some good points. She says the source is overstaying visas. The border isn't the biggest source of illegal immigrants. That's wrong. I mean, because we have like thousands coming over the border.
Well, Custom and Border Patrol, it's not just overstaying their visa. They're just pouring across.
Yeah.
And they get a court date if they turn themselves into the Border Patrol and they get a date that's put off years in the future. So it's just it is a problem, and a lot of them are also coming down from the northern border from Canada into the United States. So our resources are stretched thin, and the money has to be allocated to take care of this. I mean, New York City is can't do it. They're running out of resources.
Well, even Mayor Eric Adams is like, hey, we need to start doing something here.
Well, that's why he's revisiting the sanctuary city policy, and they haven't revoked that yet. And a lot of these cities, like Brandon Johnson of Chicago, still won't revoke the sanctuary city policy.
So I think, I don't want to say her name right, but it's like Lou Croya or Lou
Koya?
Something like that. You see that on the...
I know, I've been
but anyway, it says pouring across, question mark. You mean planes after overstaying their visas? Unless you can give me a figure. John knows figures.
No, this isn't me saying this. They're pouring across the border. We get Homeland Security and officials come into the store all the time. We get Border Patrol agents. We get Customs. We get all federal agencies. And I always ask them. And then I look at the reports coming in from the Customs and Border Patrol, like in December. You had the record amount of illegals cross that U.S. southern border that was almost 300,000 in just one. No, it was a little over 300,000, 302,000 crossed in 1 month. And this is at the coldest part of the year. And then you have a lot of children coming across for being sexually trafficked, sexually assaulted. There's a lot of issues. And then you have record number of fentanyl. This amount of fentanyl that is poured across that border could kill every man, woman, and child in the United States. So all these things are not being fixed. And you got a president who hasn't done anything. Now tomorrow, since this is Wednesday, the 28th, on the 29th of February, he's going to the U.S. southern border, but he's going to an area that is not as
Brownsville,
not as trafficked as President Trump is going to Eagle Pass, which is the heart of it.
Brownsville's more like if you and I wanted to hop across the border for like a couple hours, we could do that and then just walk right back.
Exactly.
So there's like very little to no traffic, and it's rarely looked after too. Like if they see somebody that's crossing that's not supposed to cross, they're going to kind of snatch them
But see,
up.
you're also getting, like in California, in the San Diego sector, you're getting hundreds of Chinese nationals that just been released. So you're getting individuals not just from Central America or Mexico or Latin America. You're getting them from Africa. You're getting them from Asia. You're getting them from the Middle East. You're getting them from all over, and nothing's changed.
So kind of going back to TikTok a little bit. Right now, as I understand it, there are three towns of American in North Texas on fire. We'll get back to handsome Boston Tea Party president, but she wants to know, do you have the exact figures? Of course she wants the exact figures, because
On what? How many
on illegal immigrants of the border crossing versus visas.
I would have to go back and look on the visas. I know Customs and Border Patrol, like I stated a few minutes ago, had over 302,000 cross in December. Since Joe Biden has took office in January of 2021, going by CBP, they had almost a little over 7 million cross the U.S. southern border. That's not including the known gotaways, the ones they couldn't capture. So they're pegging that about over 8 million. So right now you had about over 8 million have crossed, whether they've been apprehended, captured, or not captured. You have that many come across.
Handsome Boston Tea Party president says, yep, let's bring illegals over, pay for them, and forget the disabled and the working class struggle. And there's a little bit going back and forth ago, but he also mentioned, and I think we can kind of get into this, is like 4 years ago, you never hear overdoses on the scanner. Now it's daily. So I think when he's saying about the overdoses, he's talking about there is like a plethora of fentanyl coming over the border.
There is, and a lot of it originates in China, goes into Mexico to the cartels, and up into the United States it comes.
Yeah.
So it's a major problem. All this, like I asked,
is fentanyl new? Like, has this been around for?
It's all been around, but I think it's. I'm not sure when it came about, but. Like, again, when I talk to the DEA agents and ICE agents who come in, and especially the customs agents, when they deal with drugs, I asked them, what is the primary drug of source? And they all say fentanyl is the primary drug.
Yeah.
It comes in a variety of different ways.
I think, actually, for that point of view, is because the way it can get cut. Like, if such a low dosage can do a lot of damage.
Correct.
Then basically you're going to be able to get more for less.
Well, but if you look at some of these cities, like
from a dealer perspective,
yeah,
but from a buyer's perspective, you're just getting the same amount.
But look at some of these, and I think it's cheaper for fentanyl. So and you're right, a little small dose can just wipe you out. And a lot of people have taken it for the first time and they're dead. Mm-hmm. But look at some of these cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, Philadelphia, New York. They have these drug zones, and it's just like people are walking around as zombies. But nothing has been done so far. And the president was very disingenuous, which is a kind statement, about the failure of the Senate bipartisan deal. It amazes me even how any Democrat or Republican could support that bill when, one, it didn't do, hold on, it looks like I got something. Live age restricted. Okay, hold on.
Nope, don't push any buttons here. What's wrong with you?
I was going to hit okay.
No.
Okay. Okay, but anyway, the
let me look at it while you're talking.
But anyway, you've got a lot of these problems in these communities, and the president bashes Republicans for not passing the bipartisan immigration reform bill. But it won, like I said earlier at the beginning of this program, it didn't do anything about the sources of the problem. And there was an article or a report out of the Foreign Affairs magazine, mm-hmm. which is kind of familiar with the Council on Foreign Relations. The United States is failing to change its policies toward Latin America. You're seeing a lot of problems down there, and President Biden has not visited Latin America. He had a meeting with Mexico and some other Central Asian leaders, but they're not doing anything. Mexico is not doing anything to stop it, and we have resources and ways to kind of get these countries to move on. But we're not doing what we're supposed to do. Then we didn't do anything about the asylum law. Mm-hmm. I mean, he tweaked it, but it allows also 5,000 immigrants to come every day. Jay Johnson, who was President Obama's Homeland Security Director, said if we get 1,000 a day, it's going to overwhelm the system. Can you imagine 5,000, almost 1.5 to 1.8 million a year?
What's the ploy? What's the why? Why? I mean, why? Why are they just like, hey, come on?
I think there's two reasons. One, the progressives don't believe in borders. Everybody should be able to travel all they want. The second reason why, and I think more of the impetuses of this, is if they bring enough illegals, like some of these illegal immigrants believe that support Joe Biden, and they eventually will get amnesty, they will flip Texas. Because if the Democrats ever flip Texas, there's no way the Republicans can win the White House. They want single party rule. It's just like they want nationalized voting, the voting rules. Mm-hmm. That goes against the Constitution because the Constitution is explicit. All voting, changes to voting rules are conducive to each state. That's why each state has different rules instead of one nationalized rule.
But mostly cities are Democratic anyway, so you have Dallas, Houston.
But the states are the ones
Austin.
But the states are the ones that control the voting rules for each state. Just like in 2020, Texas sued other states because they didn't agree with their voting rules, and the Supreme Court. So
they would initially have to flip the governor before they could flip the state.
Well, if they flip the state, if more people vote Democrat in that state, they will have a Democratic majority in Texas.
Okay.
And if the Republicans lose Texas, because if you look at the electoral college,
how many delegates are in Texas?
I think Texas has 36 electoral votes.
But California has more. Who has the most?
California, they have 54.
Okay.
Well, hold it, 53. They just lost one. What it is, it's all your congressional representative plus 2 senators. That gives your amount.
Yeah.
But so anyway, they're trying to flip these states because if you look at the Electoral College favors the Democrats because you got Washington State, Oregon, California being the largest electoral vote state. Then you go to Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, New York. They voted Democrat, except for Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, which flipped in 2016 to Trump.
See, and I'll tell you one thing. It favors Democrats until they don't win, and then they try to change it to a popular vote.
Correct. That's why they want the popular vote, because they want it to be, whoever gets the most votes. The reason why the founders did it the way they did it, because at that time, during the time of the Revolution and afterwards with the passage of the Constitution, the biggest states were New York and Virginia. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the presidential winners, the vast majority, the first 7 or 8, came from Virginia, except for John Adams came from, and John Quincy Adams came from Massachusetts. So the smaller states like Delaware, Connecticut, Rhode Island were afraid they would be gobbled up. That's where the compromise came in with the Senate instead of by, we just go by representation. Mm-hmm. So they were afraid of that. That's why the Electoral College came in. So you can win by not getting the popular vote, but you win the Electoral College.
So,
but
are all presidents related to the Queen of England? That's kind of a good little pop right there.
No, not all the presidents are related. Some were, and at some point back in their history, but no, not everybody's related to the Queen of England.
Well, I know you're really familiar with the Constitution. I mean, if you have it hanging up in one of your rooms, of course you're very familiar with the Constitution.
I got a picture of it. So.
But it said like no kings or queens can be considered to be president. Is that correct? Or anybody of nobility? Was that
during the Constitutional Convention, that was a big issue about, there was a huge debate about who would serve as the leader of the country. They were talking about a king or queen, and I think Washington says we're not going to do that. A lot of people said we don't want to go back. That's what we fought a war over. So they settled on a presidency. And the reason why George Washington became the first president is because he had respect on both sides of the aisle. So when he became the president in 1789, he made sure that he did what the Constitution told him to do. And that was the model that was set forth all the way up until about Theodore Roosevelt became president. You would only do what the Constitution told you. So that's why the Congress was stronger in the late 18th century into almost all of the 19th century. It wasn't until, was it 1901 when William McKinley was assassinated and Roosevelt took over. He said, if the Constitution doesn't forbid me, I can do it. And then because we became more of a global power, you needed one person to speak for America. That's where the president became much more powerful. Now you have executive overreach where the Congress has acquiesced a lot of its power to the executive branch.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that need to be addressed. Now, this is one of the biggest one.
Well, kind of going back to our topic at hand is what executive action do you think our president is going to try to do in order to appease the immigration situation?
Well, that's an interesting thing because
that's what we should have named it, the immigration situation.
Well, that's the thing that is interesting. I'm not sure what he would do because President Biden is really down in the polls. I mean, he's got a 38% approval rating, but the progressives are really angry at him for even attempting to do some of the executive actions on immigration. They still want unfettered access. So he's got to thread that needle. So I'm not sure if he's going to go back. But a lot of the times it could be too little too late because everybody knows the Democrats own this. And how is he going to fix it? Because they're still pouring across. Now, if you get to summer, let's say July, and if there's any inclination that Joe Biden is not going to win in November, you're going to see more of these immigrants pour across because they want to get their foot in America so they may not be sent back.
So what I'm predicting, I'm going to put this money on Vegas too, is that Joe Biden will get the nomination, but something will happen and Trump will run unopposed.
No, there'll always be there'll always be.
So you're saying if something would happen to Joe Biden, they'll throw somebody else in there? That
Well,
doesn't
because-
give that person that much of a
because they're-
chance.
No, because we've had brokered conventions before. 1968 was a brokered one.
Okay, was that so? What I'm saying is, like, has there been a president for a second term not been nominated?
No, there was. John Tyler, who took over for William Henry Harrison, who died after 30 days being in office of pneumonia.
Okay,
John Tyler took over.
that doesn't really count.
And he didn't win his party's nomination.
I don't think that counts.
The other one goes.
I mean, it does count, but
The
I don't
other
think it
one
counts.
was, in the degree, not so much as you were thinking, was Lyndon Johnson in 1968. He lost in New Hampshire. I think he lost in a previous primary before that, and he just saw the writing on the wall. He decided, I will not run, nor will I seek my party's nomination. So they went into a brokered convention, and they went through the primary season, and his vice president, Hubert Humphrey, wasn't selected in the primary. So he came out of a very fractious, very violent convention in 1968. That's the fear a lot of Democrats have. If they go into the convention, during that convention, the delegates could say, we don't want Joe Biden, we want somebody else. But the question is, who is that?
So the delegates could do the same thing with Trump as well, correct?
To a degree, I would have to see it each.
But I think their delegates would be more solidified.
They were more loyal. They would be more solidified. The Republicans always keep it pretty simple. Democrats have a lot more rules and different things they're going to do, and so it'll be interesting. Come August when they have, I think it's August, and they have the Democratic convention. Is do they still stick with Joe Biden? But their question for the Democrats is who? Everybody floats Michelle Obama, but then there's Gavin Newsom. You got Kamala Harris, who should be the heir apparent, but she is about as unpopular, if not more, than Joe Biden is.
I think they're going to go still with Joe Biden. They're going to try to drag that dead horse over the finish line to see if he can pull it off.
Then we'll have to see what happens. That's why they're limiting his ability to speak in front of the cameras.
Yeah, but also, like, what would be the biggest demise of Joe Biden when it comes to him not winning the election?
To me, there would be two things.
Okay.
It would be something comes out about his health that is unknown now. And if you listen to some of the economic leaders like Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan and others, they're seeing, the economy on paper is doing really well, but we've got huge debt burden coming up. We're $34 trillion in debt and growing fast.
Yeah.
And Americans are at record level credit card debt.
Okay.
So our economy is built on borrowed money, just like California's economy was built on borrowed money. And now they're facing from a $100 billion surplus 2 years ago. They're at a $74 billion surplus. Deficit now.
Well, I think Michigan kind of showed us something about the way the Democrats are working right now, is because I think Joe Biden won majority of the votes in Michigan.
Only by less than 200,000 votes. It wasn't a lot.
I think it was a little over 100,000.
Yeah, okay, go by there.
So you have a little over 100,000 where Trump comes in and it gets 700 and something thousand.
But see, you're also seeing this election as Joel Cocken, who's a liberal columnist for New Geography, he writes that this election is going to be a class election because you see the Democratic Party flipped and Republicans is flipped. Republicans used to be the party of big business. Now you see the Democrats are the party of, if you got an advanced degree, you make over $150,000, you work in government, the tech sector, finance, or the media, you're going to vote for a Democrat. You're going to vote for Joe Biden.
Well, just a couple grand more, you'll be the 1%.
But if you make less than $100,000, you don't have a college degree, you're a blue-collar worker, you're a working class that used to be the heart and soul of the Democratic Party, you're voting for Republicans because you see your life not getting any better. That's the problem. As much as Joe Biden said inflation's come down, prices are still high. Small businesses do not feel confident for the future.
So what I see coming up into this election is that they might, if Biden is it and it's Trump, and people are going to be stuck in the same situation that they were 4 years ago. But 4 years ago, they didn't know how the whole Biden situation was going to pan out. So it kind of put the voters in a disposition right now because you can hate Trump all you want, but you can't put your vote on Biden because you know how his performance is. So if you don't want to vote for the bad guy and you don't want to vote for the guy that's not kind of pulling his weight, what do? That's
the point. That's the dilemma people have.
You don't vote.
Either you don't vote or you really hold your nose up and cross the line to Biden. Now, unlike 2020, and you're absolutely correct, in 2020, Biden could be in the basement because of COVID. That was the whole thing. So people did, and Joe Biden ran as, I'm Scranton Joe, I'm a moderate. But then when he campaigned, then he governed as a progressive, very far left.
But like let's go back to 2016 when why Trump won is because they didn't want Hillary in office. And now while Trump lost in 2020 is because I'd rather vote for Biden than
Well, I think it's deeper. The reason why Hillary lost is I think people didn't see their lives getting any better. Mm-hmm. And Hillary represented the establishment part. Then you would ask, I read a book about the Clinton campaign written from people who are very supportive of Hillary Clinton. She came in thinking, it's my turn. She didn't know. She even told her campaign staff, tell me why I'm running. You should tell them why you're running. Mm-hmm. And she had a very arrogant thing about her. So she would go into...
And she already thought she won.
Yeah, but see, then she would go into different stuff like in the South, and they would, reporters would ask her a question. Yeah, I got my hot sauce. Like, that's going to endear yourself. Or when she talked about people who were displaced because of her policies and Democratic and Republican policies shipping jobs overseas.
Yeah.
They were like, "Oh, we'll just do job training." Well, they heard those tired answers. We'll just free train you. Well, if you're 50 years old, like when Biden canceled the Keystone XL pipeline, what about those thousands of workers? You're 50 years old. They just nonchalant say, "Oh, you will just teach you coding." Like that's just an easy way for you to get a job. But those same people haven't found their job.
Yeah.
And it seems like the Democratic Party caters more to the elites that they came to despise than they do the working class Americans who are struggling under the weight of their policies.
Mm-hmm. All right, John. How can they get I'm okay. Hey, John, how can they get a hold of us?
You can get a hold of us by going to ubaldireports@gmail.com. That's ubaldireports@gmail.com. Or go to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok and check us out. My goal is to do this every day, 5 days a week, because there's a lot to talk about, a lot to dissect. I want to do some really impact the YouTube channel, get things going. But I'll be able to do this because Joe has his business that he's going to get up and running, and I'll be working out of that building when we do all this stuff.
Yeah,
so Joe,
we'll have daily podcasts.
So Joe, why don't you tell them what we're doing?
All American Gunslingers, go to All American Gunslingers, go to All American Gunslingers on all social media platforms. You can catch us on All American Gunslingers. You can email us at allamericangunslingers@gmail.com. Private emails coming out soon. We have a website coming out soon. We're able to start buying and selling guns here. So we're just getting a little bit time before we open up the store, but once we get certain paperwork, we're going to be ready to go. So just keep in touch. And so we did get our FFLs, but the only people that know are the people listening. So if you want to go on our page at All American Gunslingers and let everybody else know, you're more than welcome to. But if you do, also make sure you tell them you heard us on Ubaldi Reports. So we appreciate it.
So in the meantime, keep following Ubaldi Reports, and we'll keep informing you about All American Gunslingers. So every Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, we'll be doing this. So we'll see what's going to happen between now and then. So keep following Ubaldi Reports, and thanks for listening, and thanks for participating for those who put questions in. Till next time, keep following Ubaldi Reports.